Okay, today is the day to complete my coolant replacement for my 2008 Corolla. First of all, I should say that it's got 180,000 miles. And I noticed when I checked the coolant one day that I looked in it and it looked honestly kind of brown. I thought it needed a change because it looked brown. So I went and I checked my documentation to see if it did need a change. Now, what I found is that the maintenance log for this car requires engine coolant replacement at 100,000. After that, it requires engine coolant replacement every 50,000. And so this should have been changed at 100,000 and then at 150, and I'm at 180 now. When I checked the service records, I noticed that it was changed at 98,000, and it was changed with super long life coolant, okay, at the Toyota dealer. And I checked in this manual, and it says the note, your Toyota is equipped with super long life coolant, and the change intervals are based on having the Toyota super long life coolant. So what I can see here is that I'm 30,000 miles overdue. It should have been changed at 150, and it wasn't. That's my bad, but I'm gonna do it now. Now, what I've done so far, I've used this Haynes online manual that I found for the 2008 for the cooling system servicing, and I've used this last weekend or so to drain the coolant using that drain at the bottom of the radiator. And I also found the block drain at the engine block, and with those I was able to drain out the system, and I'll show you those now. Okay, I'll go under the car and show you where those are. I'll hit pause. First, there's the drain for the radiator. Okay, I had to remove a little panel that was here and with some screws, and I was able to loosen that with a pair of pliers. It actually comes out through here. You can't put a hose on it to collect it because there's nothing to connect it to, but I put a bucket right under here and I collected it. Okay, now the other spot it's going to be harder to see, and I'm going to see if I can it's one of these things where with this type of thing, oh, I think you can just see it there. Yeah, you can see it. I'm going to try to get the light on it. Okay, there you go. You can see it's 10 millimeter. In the center there where the light, 10 millimeter nut, and then there is a place to put a drain. The access on this point is a little bit limited. Okay, but I was able to get it with this socket extension. I used this 10 millimeter, and I was able to get a hose, a clear plastic hose that I could fit on the outlet, and I was able to collect it using that. Okay. Let me pause. I collected it in a bucket. I had a bucket here, okay, that I was able to collect it in. And when I collected the first batch of coolant, I put it in here, okay. I only got out maybe about 3 quarts, or a little bit more than 3 quarts possibly in here. And I noticed that it was, the coolant was red. It wasn't brown at all. And it didn't look dirty. It actually looked fine. But it did have 80,000 miles on it. And it probably, so at first I didn't know it was going to be red coolant. I thought it looked brownish when I looked in the radiator, but still it was due for a change. I replaced that with water. In other words, after draining it, I topped the system up with water, and then I ran it for a week. And now I've just drained out the water. The water, of course, still has some coolant in it. In fact, I drained it more than once. Okay, the very same day I did it, I replaced it with water, ran it again while it was up on the blocks, turned on the heater core and everything, and I collected a second batch of what would be diluted. It was diluted by virtue of what was left in there of the original coolant. And it was coming out, you only get about half of it out. So what's in there is still, pretty concentrated. So the second time I drained it out and I put it in here, and I refilled it with water and ran it for about a week. And this is what I got out today. Okay, you can actually see on the scale there that I got out just a little bit more than 3 quarts. That's about all I get from this system. And this one is now significantly more diluted, okay? And today I'm going to put in the actual coolants. If I look at the cooling capacity of this system in my owner's manual, it's listed at 6.9 quarts. So right now, it's fair to say I have about 3.5 quarts of water, basically water, just tap water in the system. My plan is to take some 100% strength. I'll try to get as much in as I can. I'd like to get in 3.5 quarts. But if I can only get in 3 quarts, that's what it'll be. In other words, I'm going to top it off with 100% concentrate, because I will only be able to get out about half of the system coolant. And then, since I've flushed it a couple times with water, I should have just water in there now, or close to water in terms of dilution. Now, I followed the procedure in this manual. I did not do the flush, primarily because the procedure calls for removing the thermostat. And I looked in chapter 3 about removing the thermostat, and it just seemed like I didn't want to do that much work. And the coolant seemed fine. It wasn't like dirty or rusty or anything. And it says right in here, when the coolant is drained regularly, there should be no need for chemical cleaners or descalers. Or possibly the flush. I mean, the flush is not called for in the manual or anything. It was just a little too much work, so I didn't do it. Okay. Now, in terms of the refilling procedure, the only problem I have with this, I did tighten the plugs in the drain. The only problem I have with this is, it talks about putting in a 50-50 mixture of water, which is kind of ridiculous, because using this procedure, you only get out about half of the coolant, and you can't then add it with 50-50, or you're going to end up with 25-75. And so I don't quite understand that, why I could only get out half with the technique I used. I'm not sure. I don't think it has to do with the fact that that it's jacked up 6 inches or so. Or a little bit more, because it still seems that the drain points are still low on the low point of the block, and it's still on the low point of the radiator. So right now I'm just going to go and add my coolant. Okay, I'm ready to add the coolant. I'm going to use this extended life 5-year 150,000 mile, mixes with any color antifreeze. It's 100% non-diluted. I have about 3 quarts in this, and so I'm just going to put in as much as I can. I should say that the draining procedure did call for draining out the overflow tank, which the procedure that it called for was to remove the hose at the bottom of the tank, and that's very, very inaccessible. So what I did was, I found that I could just remove this, okay, like that, and then I just disconnect, I separated it, and I was able to lower it down so that would be a way of draining this out. Okay, it'd be a little bit messy because I didn't intend to take off the little splash shield. But here's what happened. When I went to I'd already driven the car for a week with that coolant in there, because I hadn't drained it. I hadn't figured out how to do it. I was going to ignore it. And today, when I went and thought about this idea of using it to drain, what I noticed was it was empty. So the system had drawn in that coolant, presumably because I hadn't necessarily filled it all the way up. But I actually filled as much water as I could up until the top. But as it ran over the course of the week, it fills more because there's some bubbles, air bubbles or whatever inside. So this actually managed to get cleaned out, but I think I could have drained it with this. Okay, now I'm just going to use a funnel, and I'm just gonna put in 3 quarts. Okay. Okay, now that I've poured out some of it, I'm just pouring it in directly. And I'm just letting it bubble, 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 slowly adding it. If you put too much in the funnel, you can overflow it because it's only going to go in at a certain rate because the air has to come out. And I'm just going to keep doing it until I get the 3 quarts in. Then I'll turn the engine on, run it, see if I can get some more in. Okay, I got in about 3 quarts of my 100%. And that's what I got. So I'm going to turn the engine on and let it run to see if I can get that level down. And then I will just add in some more. I have some here that had been pre-diluted. I'm not quite sure why that one was 30%, but it's fresh coolant, same type. It was just that it ended up being diluted. And I noted that it was at 30%, but it's only, I just need to get about another half a quart of total in here. So, and I'm within the range of now of, I have enough 100% coolant to get close enough to 50%. So I'm just gonna turn the engine on. Okay, I turned on the heat. Hopefully I'll get some air out of the system and the level will go down. I don't want it to overflow, but if it's dead, I'll just put a cap on it. So I'll just get pause. Okay, I put the cap on, I let it run just for about a minute. I tried to take the cap off to see if the water level had gone down and actually started coming out. So I put the cap on it. I have enough in it. I'm going to run this for several days and then I will check the coolant level and I'll top it off. I can add 50-50 mix directly into the overflow tank at that time. I won't need it right now, okay? I'm just going to run it for a couple days just to get the system, the air out of the system, to get the new level, and then I'll top it off later. So that'll be it for this video. Thank you.